Okay, should we start now? So can anyone tell me if my voice is clear? I know I have some trouble setting up the voice. Okay. Let's start with the React thing. So basically, I am all doing all of this inside a code sandbox. So before running React hooks, before understanding React hooks, make sure you understand that they are not shipped yet, and you have to update your React and React DOM packages. So I'm just clicking on add dependency and selecting React, and you have to select the React package that is in the alpha stage and click on React, and it will update the dependency. And you have to do both for React and React DOM. So I will update both the dependencies now. React DOM 2, and now if I see the dependencies, I have React dependency to alpha and React DOM to alpha. These are the dependencies that ship with React hooks. So basically, let's do something like CRUD of React. So for example, let's do something like let's do a counter example. So let me refactor this function to a class, and then we will refactor it to hooks again. So to use state and lifecycle methods, we still use class components, and the major gotchas with class components are your the binding of this and the features that the class syntax ships with it. So the class syntax and the other features work with class syntax because of the Babel 2 preset 2 that ships with create React app, and if that does not ship with it, most of the class features won't work with it. So let us do a basic class example. Let us write some state in our constructor, and let us make two buttons, one which add the count and one to subtract the count. And on click, I'll make a functions for them. So I have to write two functions. For example, let me write an add function. Let us define an arrow function so that the this do not get implicitly pointed, and we'll just say this dot set state count to this dot state dot count plus 1. And for the subtract function, let's write it again. For the subtract function, let's do a basic and we will now hook them right here, and we'll say this dot subtract. So this app won't work right now because again, gotcha with class component, we have to use a super keyword in inherited classes to use this. So these are some of the things that beginners find missing. Beginners find hard to implement in React, so they shipped React hooks, and I think personally that React hooks are a great feature. So the app is completed and everything is working right now. So the adding is happening, the subtracting is happening. I want to know if everybody understood this part of code. I've just written the vanilla basic React, adding two functions and using the states. Everyone understand it now? Or should I slow down? No, I just want to know if everybody got this part so that we can move forward. So I will be posting these links because these links are very important if you want to know about React hooks. The documentation is great according to me. Okay, if everybody got this part, let's refactor this app to React hooks. So React hooks, according to the documentation, does not present any breaking changes. Hooks are an upcoming feature and they are currently in React 16.8 alpha. That is why I included the dependencies. And what hooks are? React hooks let you use state inside your functional component. So to use state till now in React 16.7, till React 16.7, you have to use something like a class component. You have to write a class and you have to use state inside of that, and all the lifecycle methods are available inside your class component. But there are major things with a class component. For example, some things like the use of this, why you have to bind your functions, why you have to use the super keyword that beginners find difficult to understand. So they have shipped something like a function, React hooks, where you can use state inside your functional components. That's pretty interesting to see because it gives rise to some of the most important design patterns and eliminates some of the design patterns that we were previously using, like render props, for example. So I have shown you an example of how to build this. I think if you all know React, you must know how to do this in React. Just a basic counter example. To understand React hooks, we will be extending this example only. Awesome. So I think we should move further. So let us remove all of this and let us remove all of this and let us now refactor this to use React hooks. So React hooks comes with like we have to use functional component to use React hooks. So let us make a function and let me return something like a div. So let's just say hello to make it working, to check if it is working. Yeah, it is working. So let me refactor this again. So we have to make 3 buttons. We will say a button to add, a button to subtract, and in between of them or outside of them we need something like a count that we already preserved it in the state. But now to use this count and to use this inside of your functional component, you have to import something like useState hook. So useState is your hook, that the first hook. Here you go, using the state hook. I will be explaining you how to use it. So useState hook allows you to state inside your functional components. So we will do something like const. It gives you an array. So we'll say array is equal to useState, and we will give it the default value. For example, a default value of count is 0. So we'll say use my state, initialize a state variable for me that I want to re-render when it changes, and I want when I change using a particular setter. For example, this dot set state in class components, I want to re-render my app. So we have chosen a default value of 0 because it is our count. And let me destructure this array. Sorry, it is an ES6 syntax. Let me destructure this array to use something like let me extract the first. For example, array at 0. Array at 0 gives you the original value, so count, and array at 1 will give you its setter. So when we use useState, it gives you value in two pieces. It gives you an array which we have destructured now. So count is your value, and set count is the way the set state works. For example, you write this dot set state and you say count at this dot state dot count plus 1. Set count says just give me an updated value of count and I will re-render your whole functional component. So in this, the whole gotcha about this and super and constructor goes, and we have to just use something like on click, and we will pass it an arrow function and say set count and count plus 1. Set count says just give me an updated value and I will re-render your component based on that value. And in this one we also have to say on click, sorry for that, on click equal to set count minus 1. So this set count, I have given this name. This is not a predefined name, so you can do something like anything. You can do like set number, set initializer, you can do something like that. And this app, this 4-liner app, compared to that massive class app, works just fine. So this is your set state hook that I wanted to. If you have any doubts, you can just ask me in the comment section. I will be viewing them. So after this we will be going towards using the use effect hook, and in the next live stream probably we will be using something like use reducer like hook. Use reducer is going some changes according to Andrew Clark and Dan Abramov on Twitter. So the API might change, but most of these APIs, these use state and use effect API, are confirmed and will merge in the next version of React. So if you guys are joining late, should I explain it again one time for you? Hello everyone. So for those who are joining late, if you are in great number, I will explain again. So let me recap this again for people who are joining late. So Rohit guys said that he joined late, and I'm gonna explain it for you. So to use state inside your functional component, you have a use state hook, and use state hook demands a default value. So we said I want a default value of 0, and in return it gives you two values inside an array that I have destructured here, and it will give you count, the original value that you can use inside your templates, and a setter just like your set state in your class components. So for the count I have just printed out the count, and for the set count this is the setter that will generate, that will re-render with the updated value. So on the add button, on the click event I just set count to update the value of count by 1, and on the subtract I set the set count to update the value of count -1, and that's it. That's hooks. So any doubts if you have any doubts, or should we move forward to react using use effect? Because use effect is something like you have to pay attention to understand. Okay, so I think we should move towards using use effect. So basically use effect is something like, so state is not the only thing that you use your class based components for. So we use something like lifecycle hooks, and this is where the use effect hooks comes in. So use effect is a hook which will run every time your app is re-rendered and on the initial render too. So let me eject this out, and let us close this thing, and we will examine it outside of our similar browser. So let me use something like use effect and explain it to you how it works. So we have use effect. So use effect is just hook. We have to do something like use effect and pass in a callback that it will run on the initial mount, that is component will mount, and on every re-render. So we'll say something like console.log render, and let us examine this. So this is all these are all the errors when we code sandbox does is when I type it saves it, and this is why it gives all the errors, so don't pay attention to it. Let me reload the app. All right. Can you explain this use state? So Alok, use state is basically it is a React hook that I explained to use state inside your functional components. So yeah, basically it says rendered on the initial mount, and every time I hit a re-render, this is all re-rendering, it will say rendered and rendered. So this is when the first time I saw it, I said it's a waste of time, because I just want something to run on my component did mount or component will mount. Then why it is running on every re-render? So the major gotcha with it is use effect takes a second parameter, that is a changer. So if you have used something like a pure component, it changes, it re-renders every time your prop changes, and other time it does not re-render, it does not render your component tree. That is good for your performance benefits. But in use effect, you pass it the second component that will check, that says in if present effect with only activate if the values in the list change. So it will take an array, and if you pass it an empty array, it means that this what you mean by it is just run on the initial render. So let me refresh the app and you will see rendered only one time. You can just ask the questions if you have any right in between the live stream. I will answer them. I'm just looking at them. So it says rendered, and every time now I click on it, it does not say re-render. So this is the second argument is very important. So let us use the use effect hook and do something interesting. So we'll say document dot title is equal to count. So I want to run it on the every re-render, and let's save it. And it says, so on the initial render it sets the document dot title to 0, and every time I click on add, it runs the use effect and sets the document dot title, and that's reactors. That's a use of basically use effect. It lets you run your life cycles inside of only one function. So this sometimes this can lead to some performance degradations, and this is how you solve performance degradations. That second parameter is super important. So let me make another state. Let me climb this up, and let me make another state. You can make n number of states in using use state. So I'll say new count and say new set count, and I will say my use effect to run only when my original count changes, not the new count. So it will update the document dot title only when the count changes. The second parameter, it's super important. So let's duplicate this. Let's duplicate all of this and change it. And let's say, for example, old count, and let's add a break line here, and and say new count here, and on this we say what's the name, n set count, new set count. So I'll say n set count, n set count, n n and then I know super bad naming conventions, but I think it works. Okay, this is an error. Let us add a ghost component right here. All right, it should work now. So let us do it right here. Remove all the errors. I think we don't need it anymore. So let us close the console. Zoom in a little. Okay, pay attention to the document dot title. So old count, when we have set that when the old count changes, just update the title in use effect, but if the new count changes, it won't update the title. So let me add, it changes the title, add, it changes the title, but we click on add here, it does not change the title. This is because we have put count here. But if we put something like n count, and say no, let me just I'm sorry for that, and let me just log something. And now when both of them changes, this use effect hook will run. Add, count changes, count is changing. The title is not changing because I have set the title to count, but you can see that the use effect hook is running because a count changes is logging in the console. That's basically it. And all the lifecycle hooks are covered in this use effect. So you have component will mount. If you pass in an empty array, it will work as a component will mount and component did mount, component did update. And this is basically you telling it just update on every re-render. And you have your pure component things. You have for example, uh, re-render run a lifecycle hook when something in particular changes that you currently do not have in clear class components. And the last thing that remaining is component will unmount. So how they have taken care of component will unmount is right in this way. So let me show you. So so if you return a function from your use effect hook, it will run when the component will unmount. So let me show you. So if you do something like return a function from your component will unmount callback and say console.log I am component will unmount, that's basically it. This will run on component will unmount. So that's basically about React hooks. React hooks in 30 minutes. That's basically it. So if you have any doubts, shout me out in the comment section. I will have a look at them. So Rohit asked if in layman terms, are we restricting the app to re-render if there are any other state changes other than the state changes that are used in the React parameter of use effect? Exactly. What you pass in the second parameter of React hook, the list of what you passes in the second parameter, the use effect looks at it and does a shallow comparison. So make sure it does only a shallow comparison. It does not do a deep comparison. So and checks if they are changed. If they are changed, it will re-render. If it is not changed, it won't re-render. So Rohit asked another question: do by any chance people use set state and use state in the same applications? Sorry if you come. So Rohit, use state is your hook that you can use only inside your functional components. So if you want to use class components, you can use your class components, and yes, you can use set state inside your class component in another component. So for example, you want to use a functional component and you want to use state inside of it, so you use state inside of it. So there are no laws that you want to make your whole app based on hooks, or there are no laws that you have to make your whole app based on your class components. So yes, you can use them simultaneously. So I think we have covered most of the React hooks now. I will be covering use reducer hook. Use reducer hook, some APIs can change in that, so I'm not covering it right now. It is basically a hook that lets you use Redux inside your vanilla React application, and it's pretty interesting. And the next part is building your own hooks that I will be covering in my next stream, most probably. So let's get this stream, let's close this stream right now. So if you have any doubts, I am on Twitter by Siddhant69, and all the code that I have written on this live stream, I will put it on my GitHub. I have github.com/Siddhant1. So if you have any doubts, you can ask me on Twitter on or WhatsApp, or some or you can